Hi, Laura.
Hi.
How are you doing today? Okay. Before we get started, there's a few things I just want to go over with you so that you kind of know or have an expectation of today's session, okay? I'm going to be using an approach called cognitive behavioral therapy. Don't know if you're familiar with it. Basically, CBT, which is also known as, has a lot of scientific-based research. And that helps, when you're using something to feel comfortable in knowing it's been tested and tried. The reason I like CBT is it's a real active problem-solving approach to therapy. It has a very collaborative nature, which means that we work together. I'm not going to be trying to be your expert on your life. You're the expert. We'll work together collaboratively to kind of move through things, if that sounds okay. It is educational, and again, that's not that I'm going to come at you and throw you a whole bunch of information, but help you to gain a better awareness how thoughts, behaviors, and emotions kind of interplay and sometimes send us down paths we may not want to go to. Additionally, it's time limited and it's very active, so you'll be getting a homework assignment, and I know people always love that word, but what it is something that I'd like you to kind of be mindful of in the upcoming weeks so that you can bring it back and we kind of share your experience, if that sounds okay. And the other thing is that it focuses on your current thoughts and behaviors. So while our life becomes an interplay of a lot of things from past and worries of the future, we'll stay very focused in the present. That doesn't mean we don't discuss those things, but that you may feel redirected back into the present moment at times, and that would be because of the spirit of the therapy itself. And finally, just on that note, it's not for everyone. Sometimes people don't feel comfortable with this approach, and if that is the case, then I do want you to discuss that with me. So at any time if things are feeling awkward or you're not understanding what's taking place, feel open to discuss that, okay? So I look forward to working with you and helping you to work on solving some of the problems that have brought you in today, if that sounds okay to you.
Sounds great.
Great. So on that note, what brings you in today? How are you hoping that I can help you?
Well, I have some serious mixed emotions. My brain is telling me one thing, and my heart's telling me another, and my daughter is telling me another. My daughter is pregnant and no longer the father to the baby, and which is just very distressing to me because it's just not the order it was supposed to go in and whatever. But she's young, so I still have this need to protect her. And part of me wants to say, I told you so, you should have ditched the girl in the first place, whatever. But my biggest thing right now is just this conflict between her and him, his family. I feel like they should be involved, and we should at least offer them the opportunity to be involved, and to keep kind of putting the ball back in their court. It's heartbreaking to see my daughter so upset. 2 weeks ago, I believe it was, there was the ex-boyfriend had made a comment about Hannah not wanting to have him be involved. Well, whenever she tells him about appointments or whatever, he has 101 excuses why he can't be there. And his girlfriend, which appears to be the major issue, and him not standing up for himself and guessing, got him a new phone, changed his phone number, and there was a lot of tension it started out between the girlfriend and Hannah, and then so Hannah now has no way to contact him, and she ended up blocking him off of Facebook because it was just the girlfriend would respond to everything. So, but at that point still had a pretty good relationship with his mother, his brother, his grandma, and his dad. Well, this kid's dad, mom and dad are divorced. A lot of tension between the two of them and a huge competition. It's a fairly fresh divorce. But at any rate, so now she only talks to the dad, this kid's, Brandon's father.
The future grandfather.
Yeah, and great-grandmother. And at this point, Hannah just really feels like those are the only two that haven't been snowballed by Brandon.
And Brandon is the baby's father.
Dad, baby's dad. So, I don't know what the divorce was.
No, that's fine.
A couple weeks ago, Hannah had made a comment, and she was just really feeling upset about the dad not being involved, and then him saying that it was Hannah not allowing him to be involved. Well, she made a post, and it was a very general post, and Brandon's mom read into it, which was probably accurate, but she was also making assumptions too that it was actually about Brandon. And started texting Hannah about how she used to think Hannah was a good person, and now she's not. Brandon was right. And basically, all she said in the Facebook post was that some people just needed to take responsibility for themselves and grow up. That was it. It could have been meant for 100 different people right off the top of my head.
But somebody read something into that. That's curious, isn't it?
So, and it was...
So you're really kind of struggling, it sounds like, just so that I can kind of track where you're at with this on a couple different levels. One is your personal struggle right now, of seeing that your daughter is in a situation that's probably not the script you've written for her life. And as a mom, you know, we all kind of have that life script of hopes and dreams for our daughters. And yet I hear a strength in there of saying, we'll take it as it is, we'll make the best of this, but that even though the baby's father is not, it sounds like the person you would have chosen your daughter to spend the rest of her life with, you would at least have that, like to see that intact sense of family to some extent for your future grandchild. And that it sounds also like there's the mom part of you that I'm hearing a pretty good sense of pride in that your daughter has taken a pretty good responsibility. That she's looking at the situation and trying to incorporate him, even though their relationship sounds like it's far less than perfect, and it seems like she's finding this wall that she keeps banging her head against, with a lot of people kind of dangling in and controlling the outcome.
And so much means trying not to get caught up in that battle back and forth. And sticking my nose in between Brandon and Hannah's business, but on the other hand, it's, trying to be supportive, and Hannah is finding support and has said, if I have all this much support, I don't need you. And after seeing her just bang her head against the wall, she's kind of like, I'm done trying. And then I have this, but that leaves you in the bad person.
So the bad person is the one that gives up basically on Brandon and says, do your thing.
Yeah, if you want to know, and her attitude right now is if he wants to know, and she's like, I don't want you posting anything on Facebook because I still have Brandon and his mom and dad on my Facebook. And I was like, I don't want you to post any details.
That puts you in an uncomfortable
It does. And
so
her theory
you're
is...
kind of the excited grandma to be that's taken a situation that kind of came at you, I'm guessing fairly unexpectedly.
Yeah.
Said, let's go with this. And that I'm sure that anticipation is creating some excitement. And you'd like to share that with your friends. Facebook is one of the more And now your daughter's kind of saying, I don't want you to share that enthusiasm with your friends.
Yeah, for fear that they'll see it. But on the other hand, she's doing, if they want to know, they can contact me, they can ask.
Mm-hmm.
So anytime I want to post something, it's very vague or general, unless it's about my other grandchild being born. But it's driving me crazy because part of me really understands where she's coming from,
Mm-hmm.
why she's doing that, because she just keeps getting this door slammed in her face.
So you can see that I'm sensing there's almost a feeling of wanting to retaliate.
Yeah, and
By Hannah, and it's almost like I've tried hard enough. I went to this extreme.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to go to that one.
Yeah.
We're not going to play in the middle anymore. I'm just going to swing it all the way and...
At this point now, she's exactly that. I'm not meeting you in the middle. You can come to my side if you want to know anything. And of course, I'm trying to go through the whole practical part of working in custody and placement for 10 years, saying there are some legal replications for this, repercussions. The court says this, you can't just disinclude him, But on the other hand, Hannah would absolutely have a fit, but I was messaging him the other night saying, okay, the dad, saying the appointment went well. This is when we're having when the ultrasound is. I want you to be involved in just kind of going on, and I'm like, I understand that his new girlfriend may feel threatened and blah, blah, blah. And I said, but it is what it is. Well, Hannah was really mean to my girlfriend, and I'm like, really, that is what it is. And there are two sides to this story. And I just left it at that. And didn't get a response. I'm going to be involved prior to that. Well, then maybe. And I still wanted to say, step up to the plate. There's part of me that just wants to be this mama bear to my, and protect my little girl who I just see crumbling. And it's not that she wants to be back with him, but yet at the same time saying, because of the knowledge that I have regarding custody and placement, you guys don't have to be together, but you can still co-parent, you can have a business relationship.
So right now, your desire for Hannah would be that her and, Brandon would be able to communicate. And that there's also, it sounds like some fear coming from your knowledge of working in child placement that Hannah could have legal repercussions if she continues to try to shut him out. And there's fears that would look badly in a future placement for the child, or...
Well, yeah and no, but on the other hand, as it all looks, because she really isn't shutting him out, he was the one who cut her off, that had cut off communication with her. So I just feel bad because she's not trying anymore.
We want her to
at
be
least
at a better place, that she would continue to offer the opportunity
just so
to be
that,
involved
and
with the
it's
baby.
a purely looks, purely, I did buy credit, what did you do? And especially after her mom said, well, I know, now I understand you're not a good person. Okay, and so I'm
As a
telling
mom, that was
Hannah,
hurtful to hear.
it was, and it was devastating to see how hurt my daughter was. And with that, I'm telling her, prove them wrong. Because now there's this vindictive, show them what a good person you are. And then contact his mother, because she's like, how can I contact him? I don't have his number or whatever. He moved further away, and I said, well, call his mom, message his mom, whatever you need to do. And just be very matter of fact. This is when the appointment is. Tell Brandon.
So
And then
mom
Brandon
is
can-
the channel to communicating with Brandon?
Right now, it is. And like, let him feed her his excuses, and then she'll see that it wasn't you,
Mhm.
that, you were offering the information, he was making excuses. So, part of me, for my grandbaby, hopes that there's this communication,
Mhm.
and that they can do this. The other side of me just hopes he drops off the face of the earth. Just
The reality side was, it'd be nice if he didn't exist.
in a perfect
And what you're
world.
kind of starting, I think, to see from Hannah is, Hannah's trying to make him not exist.
Yeah.
And your other piece of this is that he'd be older and wiser for one thing, but also layering on background in the whole court system and knowing the frustrations that that can present. That's not gonna work for her so well,
No. And I
with all
don't,
probability.
and then there's the other side, this has so many sides to it. Supposedly, and I don't know how true it is, that he has 2 or 3 other children out there. Has absolutely nothing to do with, completely okay with that. Doesn't pay child support because the moms just let him drop off the face of the earth. He has no responsibility and doesn't want the rights to his children. And now that I'm dealing with Badger Care and stuff, because our insurance won't pay for the pregnancy, she's 18. Can she really afford? She's had 2 visits, and we're looking at over $800 in 2 visits. She doesn't have that kind of money. I don't have that kind of money to keep paying and paying. And then the other side of me is like, why do I have to pay? This is not my baby. I didn't get her pregnant.
The reality side is,
Why is he not
there's
paying
money
for
involved.
it?
This isn't just
About
about
I'm providing a place
the
for them to
emotional part
live.
of it.
She is working so that the baby will have diapers and formula and all the necessities. And Dad is getting off scot-free, and it makes me very angry. But yet she needs to go that extra mile to keep him involved. So part of it is, I would agree with her, just let him drop off the face of the earth. But
So I'm
he has
sensing
a
in
responsibility.
you, there is a part of you that is really struggling when you go back to that piece where you said, just call his mom, know about the appointment. When you're saying these things, your whole heart's not really into that. It's more a cognitive, in my mind, I know this is what
This
needs
is
to be done.
a logistical piece for me. That, okay, and document every time you made a phone call. And, so when it comes time, we're taking this to court, and he says, I didn't know. Gee, that's funny. Here's, every time I called, here's what was said. And I'm saying, just be very matter of fact. So there's that whole business piece, that personal
It's like a very
piece.
emotionally exhausting experience.
It is. And along with that is the excitement of having this, which was originally disappointment. That, oh no, my daughter's growing up her whole life. This isn't the way it's supposed to be. And I wanted to fight a nice guy, which maybe she has, and then I'm like, oh, then there's this puke in the picture.
And your reality that is probably struggling to set in is that one way or another, this puke is always going to be in the picture because biologically. And it sounds like you're kind of also struggling with that awareness that I could just tell her drop it and don't pursue him, and chances are from history he'll disappear. But that really pisses me off, because if he disappears, she's going to be the one taking on all the responsibilities for the child, financially, support-wise, emotionally, and you're also recognizing that as your daughter, that takes its toll on you.
And then I look down the road even further, and right now it's purely a financial, how dare you get out of any responsibility. But then I look at with those responsibilities later on in life, is he, going to, well, he can have a say-so whether this child joins the military before they're 18. I just have that, I mean, and it sounds silly, but I just had that with my nephew who has had contact with his biological grandfather, or paternal grandparents, but not with his paternal, or his dad. So when he went to go enlist in the Navy, they're like, you better wait till he's after 18, otherwise we need dad's signature too. He's like, my dad's never been spoken to.
And yet there is that thing called paternal rights.
And so that part is frustrating. So why do you have rights if you don't take any responsibility? So, or do I just hope for the best someday where at some point my daughter meets this wonderful guy, marries him, Brandon terminates his parental rights, and my daughter's child is adopted by the step-parent.
That's an interesting consideration there too, is that, and it sounds like the termination of parental rights ties heavily into the fact that she would be with someone that
she
would
has to be
assume that father role, or
she, in the state of Wisconsin, at least it was several years ago, she'd have to be married to somebody who would be willing to take over before parental rights of Brandon would be terminated. Just, unless of course he'd do something completely drastic.
So as you struggle with this, I see times where there's that kind of sitting back and just reveling in the excitement of this new life that's going to be added to your family. And, that it's a great anticipation. What strengths do you draw on when you're able to go to that place? How do you see yourself changing some of your thought processes?
Well, it's, of course, just the excitement of actually having the baby around and enjoying the baby, and having my daughter there, and seeing her take on the responsibility that she needs to, and if I can just block out the whole logistics. And
so it's this logistics piece that kind of jumps in the way of you being able to accept things as saying, you know what, we're going to have this baby, it's going to be great, yeah, we're going to hit life struggles, but if I set that aside, then everything can be pretty okay, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's at that point, it is what it is. Everything happens for a reason, and the financial piece doesn't have anything to do with the relationship with my grandchild. So I can look at it that way and just stay in the moment and just not worry about that. I mean, there's a time and a place for that.
So when you're in the moment, you can be at a fairly comfortable level to some extent. When do you see that shifting?
Oh, anytime there's a conversation. Actually, usually, and my daughter will bring it up, or when we have meetings with the health department, or meetings for insurance and all that. That part gets to be, that's where you start thinking about when you're actually forced to But, when my daughter gets down about, I'm not a good person to some people.
Okay, so that, her belief
And then,
of letting people down or how people perceive her, it sounds like has a pretty strong impact on you.
Because, so much of me wants to stand up and yell, she is a good girl, your son's a puke. But, and the other time is, it's just that, I suppose it sits in the back of my brain and I brew on it and stew on it, and I'll just have one of those moments where I'm feeling a little feistier than usual, or just tired of sitting back.
So, if we were going to kind of frame this in a cognitive way, like we talked about, and I want to kind of show you a sheet that we use that's kind of a mapping sheet that talks about how an activating event kind of triggers some beliefs about the event, and then the consequences of those beliefs, your preferred beliefs, how we can change them around, and then the effects or benefits of the beliefs. What I'm kind of hearing from this, and correct me if you can clarify this, certainly, is that the activating event obviously has been not only your daughter's pregnancy, that's one piece of it, and it sounds to me like much of that you found an acceptance in life is what it is, and we're going to go forward. But the bigger event has been her baby's father's lack of engagement in this whole process, in the whole going through, the appointments, the taking on the responsibilities. It's a heck of a lot of work. The Badger care, like we've said, the human services, filing all of these paperwork is all falling on her shoulders. And he's stepping back, and not only is he stepping back, but then his family, in addition, is starting to point fingers. And so that event has kind of triggered a challenge on your beliefs, and your beliefs are that we are good people, and my daughter's a good person, but also that maybe he should be more active and more responsible, and that people should take responsibility for their actions because you take responsibility for your actions. And what I'm kind of hearing is that the impact of those beliefs in response to some of his behaviors that trigger this is a lot of frustration and a lot of anger and a lot of building resentment. And sometimes you even seeing your daughter acting outside of the role that she normally takes, but being pushed to something she's not.
It's pretty much like feeling like you've just been backed into a corner.
And the consequences that I kind of am seeing follow through this is that what is perceived to be a very joyful event, and something you obviously do have that sense of anticipation and look forward to, gets kind of bowled over by all of this jumble of negativity, frustration, anger, and probably at some point seeing yourself act in a role that you're not comfortable in, like when you earlier disclosed that she'd probably kill you because you had brought Daddy up to speed on some appointments and ultrasound, and I'm sensing that honesty is probably one of your values that's very difficult for you to walk away from, and yet there's that sense of maternal obligation to protect your daughter and the fear that the legal system will have repercussions on her if she does not make these efforts to share with him.
And it's, wondering whether Brandon realizes, because if she finds out I gave him any information, I don't give any information, and I'm not allowed to go to the appointments with her anymore, and because she's that angry. And sitting and thinking, does he even realize that, how I'm jeopardizing my involvement just to keep him up to speed? Or is he a complete idiot? in the beginning, I think he's a complete idiot.
So if we were to maybe stop, the activating event, I think we could pretty much come to a conclusion that it's not going to stop.
No.
And it's going to carry over through far more activating events in your life, coming up with this whole process and in life in general. If we were to maybe stop at that belief piece right now and evaluate a little more of the belief, what ways do you see that you might want to consider, could possibly consider that belief differently? The belief that he needs to be brought into this, or that there's going to be...
I guess it's just going back to what I know is that I'm not responsible for other people's actions. And that, as much as I want him to do something, the only control I have is over my reaction and how I handle the situation and help my daughter, whether or not she accepts it. So my belief right now is I might need to take the lesser of two evils or the lesser of two stressors. It is, at this point, much less stressful for me just to focus on my daughter and a grandbaby and all this other. Granted, we have to deal with the financial stuff. But I'm pretty much ready to say, no, I'm not going the extra mile. I'm kind of venturing aside with Hannah. We're not locking him out. But give me something to work with, otherwise I'm just going to keep giving you more rope to hit yourself with.
So maybe reframing that belief into my role here is to be grandma, to be supportive, to be by Hannah's side through the appointments and focus on care through prenatal and pregnancy, and kind of be that supportive person. He's not at this time.
It's just that moment of I'll let go of wanting to have his dad involved other than financially, and if he wants something, either him or his mother, they each know how to get a hold of him. Just, you need to come to me. And I can either pass it on to Hannah or that I've made the first step. Now I'm just going to sit down and just wait. And not expect, hope for the best, expect the worst. Be glad that he is not fighting paternity of the baby.
So if we were to work on one belief in the upcoming week, because what is nice sometimes to do is to spend some time thinking about what we talked about, but then also trying it out. What I'm hearing is maybe if we could reframe that belief of I need to kind of organize everything and make sure everything is running at the way it should be, and saying maybe a better belief right now to serve me in this situation would be that I can be caring and supportive but step back away from certain areas. And notice the emotion that responds when you're in that I need to take care of everything more. What I sense in you as you're talking about it, you get more tense. There's a stronger feeling almost of aggression starting to build. But then as you're talking about, well, maybe I could step back from this, there's also almost a sense of acceptance, a serenity that seems to, is that what you are kind of experiencing? Okay. And if in the upcoming week you could maybe, are you comfortable with journaling?
I can find time.
Okay, and it doesn't have to be long journal entries, but sometimes in the moment, we experience something and then we kind of pass it off and forget it. And I guess in using this maybe as a learning experience right now, or just a kind of a baseline, so to speak, of seeing how things might be altered by just working on a few beliefs. As you notice that belief emerging, that wanting to rush in and fix things, could you kind of notice what it feels like to pull back and just take that, I'm doing what I need to do. I've got a level head in this, and just let life take its course from there and see what happens. How catastrophic might that be for you, or are you feeling comfortable with considering doing this?
For the most part, I think I'm okay. I know that there's a few things that I need to do simply because my daughter has to go make sure that paperwork got together, and she needed paperwork from us. But as far as just...
And I think that, you know, as we're talking about this, yeah, I am hearing there's a lot of things that do need to be done. And I respect that totally, so please don't, you know, misunderstand on that it's more of the things where you know you've already walked outside the boundary of where you were comfortable. Like making contact and knowing that, because when you talk about your daughter maybe becoming reactionary enough to cut you out, that would be pretty devastating for everyone. And if we can not have it need to come to that level, so maybe those lines that where you're stepping close to a line that you're noticing is not your value
I'm just having a visual of actually just kind of drawing a line in the sand.
I like the line in the sand, and when you, because when you talked about notifying him and how she would respond, do you feel you crossed that line in the sand?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So you know what it feels like to get up to this line in the sand, right? When you're edging there, that's the time to check your belief right at that point and say, how am I feeling right now as I'm thinking this, you know? Am I noticing that tenseness and that tightening? Am I feeling like I need to lurch over that line just to get it done with? And what happens if I take a step back from the line?
I guess the way I'm seeing it right now is that line is there. I don't cross that line, but they need to come over to my side if they want.
Well, and
So that they
yeah,
can bend over.
it's, you've raised the olive branch, it sounds like, on more than one occasion. And now it almost feels like you're chasing them down to beat you with it.
Very good analogy, pretty much.
And I think that a lot of that, again, if we frame it back to some of the beliefs, is that there's a strong belief inside of you that to be a good mother, you need to protect your daughter. And protecting your daughter sometimes feels like at any cost, which means you know that legal side, you know sometimes too much information for the situation you're in. And the forecasting piece could be what drives a real wedge between you and your daughter. And I don't sense that that is what you want from this.
No, that would be, while trying to get everybody to be cohesive with one another, may actually end up blowing up. And
so the belief
I
that
have
there's going to be a happily ever after where everybody plays their role out nicely, maybe when you want to re-examine.
You know, there's, in a perfect world, everybody would get along. In the real world, the best I can hope for is a business relationship where, for the sake of this child, Dad, Mom and Dad, and I emphasize Mom and Dad, can get along well enough to do an exchange, have an open communication regarding the child
unfortunately, you actually hold very limited cards on that will ultimately be, and I think that is, that's part of that same belief, is when can I look at the situation and do an observation. Are there any questions you have for me?
I don't think so.
Okay. Does that sound like something that would work for you?
Just recognize when you want to pick up the phone and say, no, bad phone.
Perfect,
Don't
yes.
call.
Every time you need to do this.
Post on Facebook, make it general.
And like I said, we'll talk about it next week and explore, is that really the answer or not, or do we need to look down some different routes? Okay?
Perfect.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Nice coverage on the informed consent.
It was useful.
Yeah, and this is one of those that you can really explain to the client, isn't it? How it works and how it's based in scientific reasoning. And
did it help as a client to kind of hear that flow of how things?
And it is very helpful to, the time between the behavior and the thinking. If you change one or the other, then one or the other hopefully changes. Kind of, I don't want to say cause and effect, but.
And it was really good for me to watch you doing this as you're describing different things, because when you let go, your whole affect, your whole body posture, I don't know if you noticed, it was just more relaxed. You know what I'm talking about?
yeah,
It's like when you start saying, but I want to just enjoy this baby, and it was just like you could put yourself there. And then when you start down the other road, things would stiffen up. It was definitely.
Okay. One phrase I liked that you used was life scripts. I thought that was a really good way of differentiating kind of all the levels that she works on with her daughter. So working, the transactions on a couple different levels with the daughter, and the daughter's situation. You did a really nice job of noting chains of events, like unexpectedness turned into excitement, and then the daughter was put off by this, so what was the consequence of that chain of events? Reflecting back Laura's desires for her daughter. At one point there was a good summary of how Laura's work background played into the strengths of understanding her family. When you said, you talked about how she worked in the courts and how...
The other part too that was helpful too, is bringing it up, was that while it's still a strength, maybe I know too much.
Oh, yeah, okay. There's some other ones on here. I'll hit the real high points.
Questions, did I use too many? I think I was really trying to refrain, but I'm afraid at the end I probably jumped into questioning more than
You
I
did
needed to.
a little more, but you still were backing it up with the reframing and the reevaluations. And one thing I thought was reframing a belief about being there as a support for the daughter in lieu of her boyfriend. And nice homework assignments, by the way. And good job of pinpointing the logistics piece. And then you asked her, one question you did ask, but I think was just a reworking of a sheet question, was, when do you see that shifting? When you're talking about beliefs, when do you see the beliefs shifting? In your
Which
daughter and you?
is making me think, so this belief changes, then therefore will your behavior change? It's, are getting me to think that if I think this way, then maybe this will be different.
Another good question at 22 minutes was, what strengths do you draw on right now? So, oh, okay. And then you had a really good, I guess it's a reflection, yeah. That's an interesting determination about consequence, you said, that she had defined. something about her, the situation and the consequences of how she was thinking in that decision. I don't know, how did you feel about it?
I felt like it went well.
Very fluid.
And it seemed to, I mean, for me, kind of I felt like I was more present with you than I had been able to do with the last therapy session. I mean, my goal was to become more congruent with your emotional struggle, and well, you picked an easy one because I've been through that emotional struggle, so empathy was kind of a gimme. There was the times that I really had to pull back and resist not saying things like, yeah, I so know what you mean, and, and just kind of go, yeah, it bites, there's this, and it's an emotional roller coaster, which was kind of what it felt like going through the process. And yet, I think that, I like the cognitive piece on the therapy. I'm not sure I worked it as well as I could have. I just felt like I was maybe a little off pace. I wasn't quite sure about using that circle and if that would be useful.
That did help.
But at that point, it was like I kind of needed it to ground you into where we were at and see if I could put it together in a way that made sense.
Sometimes I have trouble defining the activating event, the belief, and the consequence in that series, because it seems there's overlap to me in my mind, of what an activating event. Is it an activating event or is it a belief?
Well, I think that the two come so close.
Sometimes, yeah.
Because, there were several, I think, activating events that I think all kind of led to the same belief, which was that you want the best for your daughter, that you want to do everything possible to ensure her happiness. And then from that takes off the consequences of the belief of, I need to let him know because she's going to pay the price down the road, even though she isn't aware of it. I have this knowledge she doesn't have. That was kind of what I seen playing out.
Yeah. Then of course I'm so bad. I so was messaging him. But I'm still fairly within my phone. But I'm like, I understand that my daughter is a spoiled brat. I made her that way.
Well, now that would be a new belief I would like to take back.
I understand, not a brat, I didn't call her brat. I understand my daughter is spoiled, or you think she's spoiled. I made her that way. But it will only be the best for my daughter. And the whole conversation with him quit after that because for him, and I knew exactly, it was very passive aggressive of me to do that. But it was a threat.
I was catching that in your eyes as you were talking about doing this. It wasn't like you knew you weren't doing it out of a sincere desire that he needed to be aware of this as much as you were kind of hoping to set him off.
Yeah. My daughter will only have the best. So either strive to be it or get out of the picture.
And I like the line in the sand analogy at the end. And you did a weird thing, but it somehow worked about a nice balance of aggression and serenity. And it was really something thought-provoking, I thought. Good way to help tie it up. Aggression versus serenity.
That aggression is that side of us that's very passionate and cares. But it can also block our thinking and...
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you.
I'm gonna pee one more time.